Philip's glance. "It is true, monsieur," he said. "I know of no other woman who would have stood up under such a thing as Jeanne has done. Mon Dieu, when I found a part of the canoe wreckage far below I thought that both of you were dead." Philip began to feel that he had foolishly overestimated his strength. There was a weakness in his limbs that surprised him, and a sudden chill replaced the fever in his blood. Jeanne placed her hand upon his arm and thrust him gently toward the tent. "You must not exert yourself," she said, watching the pallor in his face. "You must be quiet until after dinner." He obeyed the pressure of her hand. Pierre followed into the tent, and for a moment he was compelled to lean heavily upon the half breed. "It is the reaction, monsieur," said Pierre. "You are weak after the fever. If you could sleep " "I can," murmured Philip, dizzily, dropping upon his balsam. "But, Pierre " "Yes, monsieur."
"I have something to say to you. No questions."
"Not now, monsieur."
Philip heard the rustling of the flap, and Pierre was gone. He felt more comfortable lying down. Dizziness and nausea left him, and he slept. It was the deep, refreshing sleep that always follows the awakening from fever. When he awoke he felt like his old self, and went outside. Pierre was alone. A blanket was drawn across the front of the balsam shelter, and the half breed nodded toward it in response to Philip's inquiring glance. Philip ate lightly of the food which Pierre had ready for him. When he had finished he leaned close to him, and said: "You have warned me to ask no questions, and I am going to ask none. But you have not forbidden me to tell you things which I know. I am going to talk to you about Lord Fitzhugh Lee." Pierre's dark eyes flashed.
"Monsieur."
"Listen," demanded Philip. "I seek your confidence no further. But I shall tell you what I know of Lord Fitzhugh Lee if it makes us fight. Do you understand? I insist upon this because you have as good as told me that this man is your enemy, and that he is at the bottom of Jeanne's trouble. He is also my enemy. And after I have told you why, you may change your determination to keep me a stranger to your trouble. If not, well, you can hold your tongue then as well as now." Quickly, without moving his eyes from Pierre's face, Philip told his own story of Lord Fitzhugh Lee. And as he continued a strange change came over the half breed. When he came to the letters revealing the plot to turn the northerners against his company a low cry escaped Pierre's lips. His eyes seemed starting from his head. Drops of sweat burst out upon his face. His fingers worked convulsively, something rose in his throat and choked him. When Philip had done he buried his face in his hands. For a few moments he remained thus, and then suddenly looked up. Livid spots burned in his cheeks, and he fairly hissed at Philip.
"Monsieur, if this is not the truth, if this is a lie "
He stopped. Something in Philip's eyes told him to go no further. He was fearless, and he saw more than fearlessness in Philip's face. Such men believe when they come together. "It is the truth," said Philip. With a low, strained laugh Pierre held out his hand as a pledge of his faith.
"I believe in you, monsieur,"
he said, and it seemed an effort for him to speak.
"Do you know what I would have thought if you had told this to Jeanne before I came?"
"No."
"I would have thought, monsieur, that she threw herself purposely into the death of the Big Thunder Rocks."
"My God! You mean "
"That is all, monsieur. I can say no more."
"Ah, there is Jeanne!" he cried, more loudly. "Now we will take down the tent and go." Jeanne stood a dozen steps behind them when Philip turned. She greeted him with a smile and hastened to assist Pierre in gathering up the things about the camp. Philip was not blind to her efforts to evade him. He could see that it was a relief to her when they were at last in Pierre's canoe and headed up the river. They traveled till late in the evening, and set up Jeanne's tent by starlight. The journey was continued at dawn. Late the following afternoon the Little Churchill swept through a low, woodless country called the White Fox Barren. It was a narrow barren, and across it lay the forest and the Ridge Mountains. Behind these mountains and the forest the sun was setting. Above all else there rose out of the gathering gloom of evening a single ridge, a towering mass of rock which caught the last glow of the sun, and blazed like a signal fire. The canoe stopped. Jeanne and Pierre both gazed toward the great rock. Then Jeanne, who was in the bow, turned her face to Philip, and the glow of the rock itself suffused her cheeks as she pointed over the barren. "M'sieur Philip," she said, "there is Fort o' God." End of chapter 15. Recording by Roger Moline.